How? Please, explain to me how no part of his hurt box hit that fireball. Someone, please. I'm begging you. Literally Satan's matchup. Literally Satan. We're gonna talk about this matchup in a second. This is the perfect like segue into the matchup chart that I'll do after this. All right, I'm gonna seamlessly transition from that match into my matchup chart for the season because that's probably the first matchup that I want to talk about. That's crazy. Like, I cannot believe that didn't interact. Genuinely, where the fuck is Akuma's hurt box during Demon Flip? Oh my god. The goddamn poison orb is currently tickling his testicles right now. What the fuck? How did this not even trade? I thought dive kicks were supposed to have like big hurt boxes in this game. So there was that interaction, and then literally in the same round, a few moments later. So I know how good heavy demon flip is as an option to yeet out of the corner. So I do the light slide, and on top of that, I even backdash. Look how much space I'm forfeiting here, right? I have corner control, and I'm forfeiting back to like almost full screen just to try and keep this goddamn character locked down. And then I lose the corner and get punished, plus L, plus ratio, plus sayonara, A.K.I. So, this is the perfect transition into my Season 2 matchup chart, which I'm going to make today. Let's turn... We don't want to do a tier list. This is not a tier list. What we're doing today is a matchup chart for A.K.I. Because the last matchup chart I made was right at the end of Season 1. And it's been a little while since then. You know, lots changed in Season 2. But I didn't want to make a matchup chart too early because things take a long time to, like, settle. As usual, I guess I should also say, I don't like doing numbers. I know a lot of people like their whole, like, you know, 8, 2, 7, 3, 5, 5, whatever. I don't really like the number system because numbers mean different things to different people. So I like to just keep it like this. I'm going to say A.K.I. advantage, slight advantage, even disadvantage E. I'm also going to do one special one. I'm going to describe as only the dead can know peace from this evil. Make it stop, please, Capcom. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I already said it. You know, I won't play around with that one. Akuma is absolutely horrible for A.K.I. this season. Genuinely the worst matchup that she has. Just horrible. You can't contain this character, as I said. You can't contest his air approach. Her anti-airs just are not cut out for Akuma's million ways to change his jump trajectory. You can't lock him down in the corner. You can't lock him down mid-screen. If you try and throw a fireball and drive rush, he'll just respond with his charge 2 hit fireball. Basically, A.K.I. loses this matchup everywhere. If he takes to the sky, you can't anti-air him. If he sticks to the ground, you can't compete. His damage output is monstrous. It's just awful, genuinely. This matchup alone is so much worse than any matchup from Season 1. Like, A.K.I. didn't really have, like, a true hard counter last season. Maybe Guile, I guess you could argue, but, like, genuinely, this matchup fucking sucks. I could write a whole essay about how much I hate this matchup, but I will spare you the gory details. But 9k health, Smile? That's true. He does have 9,000 health, so I guess actually it's even. No. Okay, let's go through this one at a time. Luke. Luke is even, I think. I think this hasn't changed much since last season, honestly. Luke's a bit worse now, A.K.I.'s a bit better. I think A.K.I. in general does well against, like, Shoto-type characters that can't change their jump trajectory, adding that addendum to protect me from the Akuma stuff. It's a pretty straightforward matchup. A.K.I. has good ways of controlling the ground, but Luke also has, you know, some stuff that's still privileged. Like, his crouch medium punch is still really good. His stand fierce is still really good. I just think this is even. You know, it's a pretty vanilla matchup. Jamie. This one, I'm actually not too sure about. I think this is probably one of A.K.I.'s best matchups. I just don't think Jamie's very good, and Jamie doesn't have good ways of getting around fireballs until he unlocks the breakdance. And it's very easy for A.K.I. to shut down Jamie because she moves so quickly that if he tries to, like, run away and get drinks, you can just close the gap instantly with Drive Rush. he can't really get in if you use fireballs to zone, and also he can't get out either if he wants to back up and get drinks in. I mean, Jamie can do well in the matchup once he gets like 2 or 3 drinks up, but up until that point, A.K.I kind of demolishes him. So, yeah, I'm gonna say that's an A.K.I pretty strong advantage. I'm actually gonna put this one in slight disadvantage. The more I play this matchup, the less I feel confident in it. I feel like Manon does really well in like A.K.I.'s preferred range. Like, let me just, I suppose I should show you some examples of in-game stuff as well, so it's not just me yapping. So in my mind, like, Manon's strongest neutral range is about here, right? I think this is about her optimal distance, because it puts her outside of like medium poke range. Meanwhile, Manon has really good buttons at this distance. So like stand heavy kick obviously is amazing. And the other thing is that A.K.I has no punish on a lot of stuff at this distance. The other thing is, where is it? This thing is also very good at this distance, the overhead. And both the overhead and stand heavy kick are completely unpunishable by A.K.I at this range. So like at this distance, it's very hard to contest. And the thing that's scary is that as an A.K.I player, the only way you really have of stopping Manon from just kind of bullying you in the mid-range is to use things like Light Whip and Fireball. But the problem is, once you start going to those options, it becomes very easy for Manon to do this. Her jump heavy kick is an absolute war crime. I know Manon isn't the strongest character in the universe, but this button is basically a dive kick. So the way this matchup works is that like Manon players will like threaten you from this range, and then as soon as you get sucked into that kind of mid-range fight, they'll just hit you with the jump heavy kick, and you might just lose the whole round from like the momentum switch. So it's kind of uncomfortable for me. Kimberly, I think A.K.I beats Kimberly slightly. It's not as bad as the Jamie matchup. Kimberly just does, I think I said the same thing last season, she just doesn't hit hard enough to be scary. Like, on paper, the kinds of characters that cause problems for A.K.I are usually, like, high mobility characters. But I feel like Kimberly's kind of an exception to that, because although she does have really good mobility, she just has to, like, make so many consecutive correct decisions. You know, a lot of characters in this game, like Akuma, for example, I'm going to keep complaining about this guy, they have high mobility, but also they can ruin your life off, like, one combo. Whereas, like, Kimberly needs, like, 4 or 5 clean hits to kill you. And that's just not enough to be scary in this game. So I think A.K.I slightly wins this one. The other thing is that Kimberly has bad wake up, and A.K.I can take full advantage of that. Marissa. I think this actually might be up here this season. Marissa basically hasn't really changed. A.K.I got a lot better. Marissa stayed the same. And I feel like over time, we also have a better understanding of like how to play around Marissa. So, like, Marissa still hits like a fucking truck, don't get me wrong. She can still do 1 trillion damage off, like, any hit. But I just think you have so many tools to keep her out. And, so many ways of, like, ignoring her, like, armor as well. Like, let me just show you one interaction real quick. So, like, if you guys don't know, just a quick Marissa, refresher. Her armored moves, particularly Gladius, are actually not full body armor. They're armored from like the waist up, but they will lose to moves that hit like below sort of like thigh height. And it just so happens that one of A.K.I's best normals, this thing, crouch heavy kick, this hits low enough that it completely ignores the armor. So like if I show you this, stand medium punch does interact with the armor, crouch heavy kick doesn't. So like you can basically just sit in neutral and just press this button, and there's like no risk of you getting armored by Gladius or anything. Yeah, even EX is not full body armor. So even if she spends 2 bars of drive, crouch heavy kick will just fucking shred through this thing. And then you can just single hit confirm into supers. So that's pretty bad. And the other thing is that, I think I mentioned this last season, A.K.I also can low profile like 99% of the ways that Marissa likes to skip neutral. So like she can low profile under Gladius, that's a low profile. That's also a low profile. Yeah, you can also low profile the step kick. So like almost every single move that, like special move that she can just throw out in neutral loses to just low profile. And then once you get a knockdown, you can just go crazy. So I think this is one of A.K.I's better matchups this season. Lily. I don't know if I just got better at fighting this matchup, but I think this matchup might actually be even this season. It's tempting to say it's a disadvantage because once this character gets win stocks, she can completely skip through neutral. But that's kind of her game plan in every matchup. So I actually think this might be even this season. You just need to basically just my advice for this matchup is just rush Lily down. Honestly, rush her down as hard as possible. She does not have good wake up options, and if you do that, she can't get any win stocks up. As long as you can keep her pinned at 0 win stocks, you win. And if she starts to get momentum, you instantly lose. So it's kind of unstable, but I think it's like an unstable 5-5. JP. This matchup actually changed very recently. So I'll put this here for now, but I'm going to change it. So at the start of this season, they heavily nerfed JP's crouch heavy punch as an anti-air. And that made the matchup a million times easier for Aki. Because Aki's jump heavy punch would just blow straight through his anti-air. You could just up forward against JP like crazy. But unfortunately, very recently, there's been another slight balance patch, which has basically reverted JP's crouch heavy punch anti-air back to the original 100% success rate version from Season 1. So, almost exclusively because of that change, I'm going to put this matchup here. I actually think this is one of Aki's worst matchups at the moment. Purely because you now can't jump at JP at all. You already lost neutral on the ground. And now you can't jump at him either. And I think the other thing about this matchup, I guess another example I'll show you, is that this is one of the few matchups where the buffs to Aki's Venomous Fang didn't actually really change anything. Like, you might assume on paper, this thing might be really good against JP this season, because it's good against most fireballs now, but it's actually not, unfortunately. So this is a problem that's going to present itself in a few different matchups. It's not as bad against JP as it is against a couple other characters. But the way that they changed Venomous Fang this season is kind of odd. It's not actually fully projectile invincible like you might think it is. When Aki is initially rising off the ground, like during that first upwards part of the arc, she's only upper body projectile invincible. So any projectile which goes low to the ground, it's actually kind of awkward to get through this season. It's one thing that makes this a little bit awkward. The other thing about JP, of course, is that he can also just do this. He can feint his fireball, which has like no recovery, and if I try and like dive through this at full screen, he can just block in time and then just like punish me to death. So Aki's anti-fireball buffs this season don't really help against JP. Jury. I think this is in slight disadvantage this season. I think this matchup actually got a little bit better for Aki, but I still think it's slightly in Jury's favor. I mean, Jury's rushdown is very good and very hard to deal with for Aki. They, like I said, they did buff Aki slightly. There's one really useful buff in this matchup. So, like, in Season 1, this fireball was an absolute nightmare for Aki to deal with. Pretty much all you could do in Season 1 to beat this thing was, like, hard read it and do, like, a guess EX chain. Like that. That was the only answer in Season 1, but one really nice change in Season 2 is they made it so that Light Whip crumples on punish counter now. And that means what you can do is just wait until you see the fireball come out, and then just do that. Take the trade, and even if you hit second, like even if you hit really late, because of the crumple, you actually get massive advantage because Jury is falling down very slowly, so you can actually get Oki off this. Like that. So that interaction made this matchup a lot better this season, but I still think it's difficult just because Jury has such good mobility and she's so fast and her corner pressure is so oppressive. So I think she does still have a little bit of an advantage. Okay, DJ. I think this is also a slight disadvantage. This is pretty much unchanged from Season 1. Similar to the JP thing I was saying a second ago, because DJ can feint his fireball, it makes going for full screen dive through projectiles very scary, because if you see him do a fireball and you dive and it was the feint, you're going to lose 60% of your health. I mean, DJ still has really good rush down. He's got good wake up options as well, good mobility. I just think he's slightly awkward for Aki to deal with. Okay. Cammy. Cammy is another bad matchup. I think Cammy is just one of those matchups that's inevitably always going to be kind of bad for Aki. It's just like a less evil version of the Akuma matchup. So, like I said earlier, Akuma has 15,000 ways of changing his jump trajectory, which is a problem for A.K.I. Cammy only really has one, but it is really, really good. Like, she basically only has 2 options she can do. It's like full jump or dive kick. But even that 50-50 alone, it just makes her jump approach terrifying. And the thing about that, I should say, is that that has a side effect. So I think maybe an underrated thing about this matchup for Cammy is that a lot of people get so focused on the jump options, this versus this, that it almost makes the A.K.I player, like, overly focused on the air approach, and then you forget the fact that Cammy's ground game is absolutely bananas. So as an A.K.I player, you get so fucking preoccupied trying to stop this character jumping at you that she just does this. You'll just get hit by walk up, crouch, medium kick, drive rush, walk up, crouch, medium punch, drive rush, or this thing. Spin knuckle is still really good in this matchup, since it goes through fireballs and it's also plus on block. So Cammy just kind of overloads your mental stack in neutral. You have to be ready for like full jump, dive kick, crouch medium kick, crouch medium punch, spin knuckle, hooligan. There's just too much to be aware of. And like no one person can be ready for like 8 different things at once. So it's just very hard to keep Cammy contained in neutral when she's got so many ways of getting in on you. Okay. Ryu. I think Ryu still loses to A.K.I. I think last season, at the end of last season, I had this up here. This was one of A.K.I.'s best matchups, but Ryu got Giga buffed this season. I still think A.K.I wins, but it's not as severe as it used to be. Ryu is a lot scarier now. He's been buffed in so many ways that I can't even go into detail about, but his pressure is better, his neutral is better. And I think one of the main things that changed this matchup is that he doesn't have to spend Denjin now. So like, last season, if Ryu had a Denjin charge, it actually made him really predictable in neutral, because if you threw a fireball and did drive rush, you knew that whatever happened, if he met your fireball with his own, he was going to use up the Denjin charge. So like last season, you could almost force him to waste his Denjin charge by just doing fireball drive rush, because he would always have to respond with like a Denjin fireball to shut it down. But this season, because he doesn't have to spend it, it's actually much harder to like predict how Ryu's going to approach the fireball game. Because he can keep chucking out light fireballs, which are really good, and then like convert into a fat combo with the Denjin charge. Honda. I don't actually know. This might be my biggest question mark so far. It's not even like this is a new character and I can say that not enough time has passed. I don't really know what to make of the Honda matchup. There just aren't that many good Honda players out there. And I'm not just talking about in Europe, I'm just talking about in the world in general. I'm gonna probably go with even. This may be a slight cop-out answer. He is very annoying. His stand medium punch is insanely good this season. Headbutt is good. He can get through lots of stuff with armor. But also his wake up isn't very good and he's not very mobile. I'm gonna go with even, but this is probably one of the ones that I'm still not too sure about, honestly. This is kind of a question mark for me. Blanca. I actually think this season, A.K.I has a slight advantage here. I already thought that her drive rush approach was difficult for Blanca to deal with because he doesn't have... The thing about Blanca is he does not have good drive rush intercept buttons. He doesn't have like a, you know, like a 6-frame medium that you can just use to check drive rush. So even in season 1, my strategy against Blanca was to drive rush 24/7. But they significantly nerfed his wake up options this season. Like air Blanca ball is not like completely brain dead now. So you can still get in pretty easily against Blanca, but once you are in, his defensive options are worse. So I think now A.K.I probably slightly has an advantage here. Guile. I don't know what I'm thinking about Guile right now. I actually think, maybe this is a hot take. You know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Maybe it's just because I've got so much experience against good Guile players now. I've grinded the shit out of this matchup. I don't think Guile is as bad as these two. Honestly, I used to think this matchup was like absolutely awful, like A.K.I.'s worst matchup, but I have practiced this matchup so much with strong Guile players such as Lex, who just raided the stream. I think for me what it comes down to is that I do think Guile has very dominating neutral against A.K.I, but you have so much time to adapt. Like when I play against Guile players now, our matches will go, like every round will go to like 30 seconds or less. And I really like that for Aki because it's like, for Guile to win, he has to zone you out for 70 seconds straight. But for Aki to win, I just have to find one opening, man. One random drive rush, one random EX flip, one random cower crouch dive, and that could be the round. So it's one of those matchups where like Guile is like extremely strong in neutral. But if he makes one bad decision in his zoning pattern, it could be death. So I still think Guile probably has advantage, but it's not as bad as I used to think. I've definitely softened up on this matchup. Let's move on. Ken is like Luke. Ken is basically unchanged from Season 1, which I hate. I still hate this character. I hate his Stand Fierce. I hate Jinrai, but I do have to admit Aki does deal with him fairly well. So if this was a tier list of how much I hate characters, he would definitely be over here, but as a matchup chart, I think Aki can deal with Ken fairly well. He's just like a slightly more rushdown heavy version of the Ryu matchup. If Ryu had better ways of skipping neutral like Ken does, Ryu would also be down here. But because Ken's rushdown is better and his throw loop is better, I'm going to put Ken here. Chun-Li. This is a weird one because I've been paying attention to Chun-Li players like matchup charts this season. And a lot of Chun-Li players have flipped and are now saying that Chun loses to Aki. And I genuinely cannot figure out why. I do not understand what Chun players are cooking when they say that this season Aki has an advantage. It did get a bit better for Aki. This matchup used to suck for Aki. I think probably now it's even. But I can't really see why Aki would outright win it. I think Chun is kind of like... almost, this reminds me a lot of the Aki mirror match, if anything. Because it's like Chun is very good at doing slow fireball plus drive rush. And Aki is very good at doing slow fireball plus drive rush. So it's almost like playing the Aki mirror, honestly. Okay, Zangief. I really want to put this here, but I know the Geef community would beat me to death for saying that. I'm going to go with even. The thing about this matchup is it's one of those matchups where when Aki beats Zangief, it looks unwinnable. Like if you watch like an Aki player winning the matchup against the Geef, it just looks impossible for Geef. It looks like this. Geef just never gets in and you're just constantly chipping away at him with like light whip or fireball, you know, this kind of stuff. Just like constantly bullying him in the mid-range. But it's one of those, it's like the reverse of the Guile matchup. I can zone out Geef for 99 seconds. And then the instant that he manages to finally find like an opening, like a Stand Fierce armor or a forward jump or anything, I can die in 0.1 seconds, and that is very scary. I have to play perfectly to zone out Geef. His Stand Fierce is really good at this matchup this season as well, because at the range where I want to do, like, whip, he can just do this. This is an annoying interaction. So every time I do whip, I am risking punish counter into hard knockdown. So if this is another thing, if I try and delay to frame trap with the whip cancel off fireball like this, this also has a 4 frame gap. So you can do that. So there's lots of openings in this matchup where Geef can do a Stand Fierce that can potentially be the start of something, because if you guys don't know, full charge Stand Fierce with Geef actually gives really good Oki. I think he can do double dash as well, yeah. And then you might just die from that point. Okay. Dalsim. This has always been my most controversial matchup opinion for a long time now, and I stand by it. I think Aki smokes Dalsim. Honestly, every Aki player I talk to says that they don't understand this matchup, they don't like it, and they struggle to deal with Dalsim. Maybe it's because I'm an ex-Dalsim player and I understand the Dalsim brain rot. I think this matchup is pretty heavily in Aki's favor. I think what it is about this matchup is that there's a range where you can just chill, and there's not much Dalsim can do about it. Like, so this distance right here, not quite full screen, like not this full screen distance, but about here, I actually think Aki kind of can control Dalsim from this range, because at this distance, most of his long range normals will whiff. Like medium kick and medium punch will whiff, and stand heavy kick doesn't hit crouches. So at this distance, the only things Dalsim can do to kind of like establish himself is Stand Fierce and Fireball. That's basically it. And both those options are kind of bad because if he stand fierces and you step back, you get a free whiff punish because this thing has years of recovery. And if he does fireball, because of the Aki buffs this season, that is now a free punish. So I think this matchup actually got even better for Aki this season. Okay, Rashid. This is a funny matchup. Because here's maybe a controversial take, okay? I actually think Rashid loses to Aki in neutral, but Rashid's level 2 is so broken that the moment that he has 2 bars, it turns into this. If he didn't have his broken level 2, or if his level 2 got toned down, he would be here. But because his level 2 is so goddamn stupid and oppressive and difficult to deal with and just dominating neutral, I'm going to put it here as even. But I think up until the point that Rashid activates level 2, I actually think Aki very slightly out-neutrals him. So if they ever tone down Rashid's level 2, he'll end up here probably, but for the time being, he's going to be here. There's some nice new developments to this matchup this season because this is one of those matchups where Cower Crouch dive buffs really helped. So like last season, Rashid could just chill at full screen, full charging fireball. This was actually really difficult to deal with last season because Aki did not have a good way around this, but now as soon as you see him spinning, you can just do this. Like, this is straight up just reaction. You don't even need to guess. As soon as you see him start spinning, just do Cower Crouch dive and it's guaranteed. So he can't do brain dead fireballs from full screen anymore. And the other thing is the buff to stand light kick is really nice this season because it now gives you a reliable punish on misspaced stand heavy kick. So a lot of Rashid players like to throw this normal out in like this distance. You'll see a lot of stand heavy kicks at like this spacing. But stand light kick is actually a punish counter from this distance, which is nice. Maybe a controversial take, but I think the Aki mirror is 5-5. Debate me if you must. Ed is another one that I'm gonna put this at even, but I've been going back and forth on this one. I've spoken to Ending Walker a bit, and I think early in Season 2, I think Ending Walker thought this was actually slightly in Aki's favor. I think with a bit more time and a bit more development in the matchup and a bit more Ed advancement, it's gotten a little bit harder for me. So I think this is even, but I am willing to hear alternate opinions on this one. This is kind of like the Honda matchup for me. This one is a little bit up for debate right now. I could see like if someone told me that they thought that Ed wins this, I wouldn't argue. And if someone told me they thought that Aki wins this, I wouldn't argue. Like I could see a case for like both of these, but I'm gonna put it in even for now. Bison. If there was a micro half spacing here between even and slight disadvantage, I would put Bison here. If I was being extra nitpicky, because I do think it's fractionally in Bison's favor, but it's not anywhere near as bad as these matchups, so I'm gonna keep it in even. This matchup is like, again, sort of similar to Chun-Li. This is like the Aki mirror match almost. Both Aki and Bison are very similar characters. They both apply a status condition to you, and then they rush you the fuck down, and if you get opened up, you die. They're both snowbally characters with extremely fast drive rushes. The way this matchup goes is either I manage to land the first hit against Bison, and then I just snowball him to death, or he manages to land the first hit on me, and I get snowballed to death. But either way, someone's getting killed very quickly. But I would say it's like half the time it's me, and half the time it's my opponent. So I'm gonna put it in even. And finally, Terry. Terry actually beats Aki slightly. I'm gonna put it over here. This isn't really ordered, but I want to make clear that it's like not as bad as Guile. This is the ultimate like final boss version of what I was talking about earlier about Aki's Cower Crouch dive. Like this is the zenith of why the changes to that move don't work against Terry. Let me explain what the hell I'm talking about. So earlier I was saying that fireballs that go low to the ground are a problem for Aki. Well, Terry is the only character in the entire game who has a ground level fireball that acts like a normal fireball. Like this thing doesn't have any extra properties. It's basically just a Hadoken, but one that travels along the ground. And That fact alone makes it an absolute nightmare for Aki to deal with because it will not interact with Aki's fireball. And this is a huge problem because of this. Normally if I get my fireball up on the screen, that becomes a shield for me to drive rush behind. But I straight up cannot do that against Terry. One of Aki's strongest things right in this game is her fireball drive rush, and Terry can just completely ignore it with his own fireball. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is, as I was talking about earlier, this move right here, Aki's cower crouch dive does not gain full projectile invincibility until she like reaches the arc of the jump. And on the way up, her lower body has no projectile invulnerability. So if I try and do cower crouch dive in this matchup, this happens. So my two best ways of dealing with fireballs just straight up do not work against Terry. So that's very awkward. But the good thing is, Aki is not a one-dimensional character. So even though Terry does shut down fireball drive rush, the good news is that Aki still has options here. This is not like a 10-0 matchup or anything. Like, I think Aki's mid-range is better than Terry's. Like, at like this distance here, once you get past the initial fireball wall and get into like the mid-range, I don't think Terry has good options here compared to like Aki doing heavy punch, forward fist, crouch heavy kick, crouch medium punch. His buttons are quite stubby in the mid-range. He doesn't have like a Ken stand fierce. So I do think at long range, Terry destroys Aki, but once you get up close, Aki does much, much better. For the time being, I'm going to put this in slight advantage for Terry. But this character scares me. I guess this is just the last thing I'll say. I think Terry is going to get giga buffed in the Season 3 update because everyone thinks he sucks right now. And this matchup is already kind of awkward. I can very easily seeing this becoming... Like, my foresight is activating, and I can see the future seasons where this matchup just keeps getting worse and worse as Terry gets better and better. So it's already an annoying matchup, and if Terry gets buffed, it's probably going to get more annoying. But for the time being, I'm going to put it in slight disadvantage. So yeah, there's my Season 2 matchup chart. Feel free to agree or disagree. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. See you guys next time.